Mic check. Check 1, 2. Mic check. All right, Bulldogs, we're going to be starting in about 5 minutes. If you guys can go ahead and put those cell phones away, put them in your backpacks or in your pocket. That way you're not tempted to look at them. Thank you. Welcome in. If you guys want to come grab a seat, make sure those cell phones are put away in your backpack or your pocket. We're going to be starting in about 3 minutes.
use my defog the glasses.
Right. As far as Dr. Watt wasn't here yet, I'm going to try to locate her.
I want your hat on.
Terry just told me just now she's not going to be here. She fell under her head out for a week, so we'll have to miss our luck to sleep over there. Thank you, Dr. Watt, unless you still want to call her out.
I will still thank her, and somebody can be in her place.
Our superintendent. I'll have her.
Who's your superintendent?
That's Ishmael Vabanco. He's the gentleman sitting in the back row. Yep. Alrighty, Bulldogs. We are going to go ahead and begin our assembly. So if I could have you guys make sure those cell phones are put away one last time there. Alrighty, thank you guys for joining us here in the cafeteria. The rest of the school's joining us via live stream. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off. I have Aaron Wagner here. He's going to be doing a brief intro of our special speaker and many of our guests, K. Knott. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hornbacher, and good morning, friends. Welcome to this historic day. You're in for a real treat. My name is Aaron Wagner. I'm the Executive Director of Voices of the Children and find myself now teaching band at LaVenture Middle School. Before that, I was at Mount Baker Middle School, so I may recognize many of you. Anyway, it's my honor to be here today, and I want to start by recognizing that this is the traditional land of the Nookachamps Band of the Upper Skagit tribe. You're going to meet some really good friends, some people that I admire, that I trust, and I look up to today. And I said, this is an historic day. To my knowledge, something like this has never happened. It certainly didn't happen when I came to school here a couple years ago. It's a packed day. You're in for a treat. I want to get the ball rolling by introducing you to my good friend, Squaha K. Knott, the Upper Skagit tribe.
Hot Dadatu, Squaha Seeds Da, to all Skagit. Good morning, Bulldogs. Your sign up here says Home of the Bulldogs in our language. We are honored to be here. I have several family members and members of the Upper Skagit tribe that will be sharing with you today stories and parts of our culture. But the Upper Skagit people did not have a written language. So 10 years from now, if we didn't have a written language, what happened to here today would be gone. So the way that we recorded history is we called up witnesses at special events. And those witnesses were respected people in the community, and their job was to keep the event recorded so that if one person traveled and said, I heard that the Upper Skagit people had this event at Mount Vernon High School, and they said their homelands were all of Washington State. And the witness would say, no, that's not what they said. This is really what they said. Or they can share what happened here. So today we're calling up 4 witnesses.
So our first witness is Autumn Ogbach, Delaney Allen, Nina Haran, and of course Aaron Wagner, our intro speaker there.
And if the witnesses could stand right up front here in front of the stage. So one of our tribal elders here, Laura, and my granddaughter Ashlyn, will be covering the witnesses. It's a place of honor and warmth for them. It's recognizing their special place in this work we do today. We call a lot of what we do work because things have to be accomplished. So they each have orange armbands as well. And those orange armbands are for me today. I'll be talking about Orange Shirt Day. And so that's the color for Orange Shirt Day. While they're getting ready, has any of you heard of Orange Shirt Day this year? We have a little bit. There was some curiosity. I hope by the time you finish, you'll be celebrating with us next year for Orange Shirt Day. So we welcome the witnesses to sit down and to do their work. If we can give them a round of applause. In our way, we would raise our hands to them. So the very first thing we're going to do is we have a special guest from Upper Skagit, Edmund Matthias, who is a drummer and a singer from our tribe. If he could come up. And he is doing a welcoming song. He's going to introduce you by his Indian name and his family. And I thank him for taking the time to be away from work this morning. And I'm so proud of him as a young man in our tribe, sharing his gift of drumming and singing, and that he answered when his elder asked to come share his gift. So, Edmund Matthias.
I'd just like to thank Kay and the Mount Vernon High School, honoring our Upper Skagit people. My ancestral name comes from the Upper Skagit Indian tribe, which is Saligua. So today I'll be singing a welcoming song.
Thank you for that song. That's a song that Mr. Matthias is gifting the tribal people. I hope by the time we finish, you understand how much of our traditions and talents and gifts have been lost. So it means a great deal to me to have him share that gift with you. So we're going to start now, and I want to start with some words that were gifted to us by Vi Hilbert. And you'll hear more about her at the end of this. She was responsible for documenting and saving our language. And along the way, she gave gifts to us. And this is a greeting that she shared that I would like, we added one line to it for Mount Vernon, but I'd like to share this with you. In the language, I'm kind of like a toddler. And so my teachers are very patient with me because they know I say this from the heart. Gulapu ti'i di'ishid, adequa di'ishid. Ha shaksiab, itigui tabuthachath, itigui tabuthachath. Daiha tias squok chath tias lahale, aslad chath, qui atsi tabu to all ti swatifted, to all chath skajit, utigui tabuthachath tias stadialab. Suslachab tial holdik etia to ishid suslasliel. Uthli si'iab, ukwahwa togolcha, ukwahwa togolcha, omasista. And what I said was, welcome, family and friends. Creator, we give you thanks to you. It is good that we could come together today to remember the first people of this land. We are Skagit. We give thanks that all of you are here with us, as honor those who came before us. We do this important work so that we will be here always. We help each other in this way. We strengthen each other in this way. Amen. It is one of my favorite words. I share a version of that, often placed everywhere I open up, because I think as people, and we're in multicultural communities, that we are better when we get to know each other. We're more similar, we share more things, we love our children, our family, our parents, and that we are stronger when we get together and talk. Our first speaker today is Joseph Bowen. And Joe is a Mount Vernon graduate. He also went to Harvard College and graduated from University of Washington Law School. He is a person who has served the community in many ways, but most recently, his love of theater and working with theater with both adults and children has been very important. His children are going to school here, and one has graduated. And in our family, my brothers, my kids, we have lots of graduates here in Mount Vernon, but I can promise you it didn't look like your school now. When we went to school here, there was one Native family and like two Hispanic families, like the Rivas family and the Rodriguez family, and that was our diversity in Mount Vernon. So to see such a beautiful change in the school and the diversity is really an honor to me. So I am honored. Joe is also a historian and a storyteller for our tribe, so I'm honored to invite Mr. Bowen up to speak.
Thank you, sis. Did you mention that I'm a 1980 graduate of Mount Vernon High School and member of the Hall of Fame? Didn't? This is my school, and you are my people. The sign there says, "Welcome, Bulldogs." And I asked myself, where are the Bulldogs? Where are the Bulldogs this morning? Are they out there? Are they out there? And where's the Bulldog welcome for our guests? We knew how to welcome guests back in our day. May I hear it? May I hear it for these people that have come to see you this morning? This is the second year that I've done this. Last year during the shutdown, some of you were with me and some of you saw me on the school television when I did the Lifting the Sky story. Show me your hands if you remember that, if you saw that. You remember that? Good. Last year, we lifted the sky together. Do you remember the word that we said? Because today, I want to lift the sky some more. That's why you stood when my young brother gave you that welcoming song. We stand to show the singer that he or she is lifting our spirits with her song and his song. And we lift the sky together so that we can see farther and we can see each other better. And it's one word of cooperation. Those of you that remember can help me. Do you remember the word? It's Yahau. Yahau. Let's hear it, Bulldogs. I'll do it again. The sky's still in place. I won't tell the whole story, but it goes Yahau. Maybe we can have a little drum to help that one more time. Yahau. Today, we speak to you almost within sight of a small mountain you call Big Rock. We call Yadwasta, the heart. Today we come to open up that heart to you because it's important that you know these things. You have chosen to come and live in this land, and that's important to us. Where you choose to live, the tribe that you choose to join is most important to us. I've got 10 minutes to say 10,000 years of history. I can't do that. But like my elders, I can try to make you interested in this history so that you can find it yourself. Find it for yourself. I hear that so many times, don't you? I wish there was some history. There is so much here. All you have to do is look for it. All you have to do is ask. The Upper Skagit are 11 bands. Our territory began down at Mount Vernon, right in the middle of town, you'd say. There used to be a log jam. You can go and see the memorial. That was the western boundary of our lands. This is the territory that was held by the Nukachops band. Now, picture in your mind as you go east all the way up the Skagit River, past Cedar Woolley, past Lyman, past Concrete, the village of Sabaliak, all the way to New Halem, Washington, where the dams are. That was our territory. 1.7 million acres. The third largest river on the West Coast. At the junction of the Baker River and Concrete, can you see that in your minds? Was one of the most important places on the river. It had the greatest run of salmon. They said it was so large that you could walk across the river on their backs. The river was our heart. It was our lifeblood. It brought us our people. It brought us our stories. It showed us everything. It showed us the way to each other. And of course, our people became expert in navigating the rivers. If you were to go back in time to this very place, you would see people of my tribe, people Skagit Bastolak, people of the river, preparing their canoes. You can see them. You'll see them in the slides and at number 5, preparing their canoes. Shovel-no canoes. They were experts at doing this, loading them with gifts and goods to travel up the river and down the river to meet relatives. They'd spent the entire year or more making food, making their wealth, making themselves wealthy, not so that they could keep it, not so that they could show it off, but so they could give it away. The potlatch was one of our most important ceremonies, and the giveaways was one of the most important parts of our culture. That's when we would make the ties that bind to each other. And in the wintertime that we're coming upon now is when we would practice our religion. It was called the winter spirit religion and the winter spirit dances. If you were here 150 years ago, and you traveled along with my elders as they traveled up the river or down, you'd be holding on to the side of the canoe tight with white knuckles. They'd be calmly strolling along as if they were walking down Main Street of Mount Vernon, but they were that expert at navigating the river. Every time you came to a place along the river that you recognize as a city right now, you would find what used to be, what once was an Upper Skagit village. At Mount Vernon, at Burlington, at Cedar Woolley, because of course we cleared all of these places out and they were good places to live. And the settlers came and replaced us here. You would go up and down the river. You would find longhouses, for example, at number 2, constructed of cedar, beautiful, beautiful longhouses. And inside were these carvings, huge carvings of our history, of our family and tribal histories. In English, you'd call them totem poles. If you went up to past Rockport to a place called Illibot Creek, you would find a longhouse that looks like that was 1,000 feet long. That's the testimony of your elders, of the settlers that came here. Imagine a longhouse that big with all of the people singing songs like that all together, the power that they could bring, what they could do for one another. That tells you how many people that my tribe had in those days. But we were struck down. Not by war. We never fought wars with the United States. We never fought wars with the settlers. We were struck down by disease, by smallpox, a disease that our bodies did not have immunity for. Our people did the best that we could, but it was too much for us, and bit by bit, we were pushed farther and farther east, up the river, sheltering together, trying to keep the tribe alive. And it was so difficult. But the elders of our tribe managed to keep our tribe in unity, our people in unity, even though we weren't even recognized at first by the federal government. Our ancestors were treaty signers. We were well known to every tribe around here as the people that controlled this valley. We were famous for what we could do. Our young people could walk from this very place to the top of those mountains that you see there with only what she or he carried on their back, and bring you back a mountain goat. We were famous for the hunting that we could do. But by the late 19th century, we were so pushed so far back that it was almost as if we were forgotten. But our elders never forgot. They kept our tribe together, and one of the most important places, historical places that you can go to, is up in Concrete. It's pictured on slide number 8. That's the Indian Shaker Church of 1910, and this was the center of our life, spiritually and politically and socially, for years and years and years. Our tribe eventually formed a tribal council. It made a claim to the United States for compensation for the lost lands. And in 1960, if you'll show number 9, the Upper Skagit tribe, led by people who did not even speak English as a first language, managed to go before the Indian Claims Commission, managed to go to court with the United States of America and prevail. And through their efforts, we survived as a tribe. We are here to speak with you today. Mr. Budsy Williams is here to represent the Tribal Council. He's the successor of these people. And as such, he deserves all of our gratitude on their behalf. But there's more, and there's so much more. You have to look for it. You have to ask the questions. And when you ask, you'll find that I know that you have popular images about natives. Yes, we fought battles, but we did not glorify or glory in war. We fought 2 critical battles to guard the mouth of the Skagit from northern raiders and the head of the Skagit at Diablo Canyon from raiders from British Columbia. But these are not celebrated. I want to finish with the story that I think best talks to you about our culture, our people, what we valued, and what today is about. Years ago, when the settlers first came here, a woman and her husband were making a cabin out on the flats in the Nukachops. The husband had to go away to work because he didn't have any money. They were, as many of the pioneers were, they were very poor. The wife was trying to keep things together. One night, she heard a knock on her door, and she saw a sight that chilled her blood. It was a big Indian man with a hatchet in his hand. And he said, I saw that you were trying to put your firewood in by yourself. I know that your man is gone. I brought my family here to help you. He and his wife and his daughter stayed and camped there for 2 days until they cut and stored all of her firewood for the winter. They became fast and lifelong friends. That's the story that I want to leave you with today. That's the most important thing to remember. Our people, our culture, our values are about welcomes, about how you treat strangers, about how you pass the kindness on that you received, about preserving these lessons for the next generation. My young bulldog friends, my young bulldog children, take this story with you and make it live as we make our people live. Thank you very much. And we're going to hear from my sister again.
I told you my name was Squaw. My English name is Kay Knott, and I come from the Washington Martin Moses Jones family. I am also Snoqualmie and Yakima. I share with all of my family, but when Mr. Hornbacher and I were talking about Native Heritage American Month, he said some of the students came to him and were curious about Orange Shirt Day. And a few of you have heard about that, but probably not a lot because it's new. So on September 30th, there was a movement in Indian country for everybody to wear their orange shirts. Do we have that up there? Yeah. And it is to remember the Native children who died in boarding schools in Canada and the United States. And they found they were just finding these children. They had not been sent home. And also for the trauma that the boarding schools that our ancestors suffered in the boarding school. So I am the daughter of a mother and a grandmother and a great aunt who attended boarding school. And it changed the makeups of our family and the culture in our family. So as I got older and I started trying to understand how did the boarding schools affect my family, and I've asked lots of tribal people as as I've gotten older, did you go to boarding school? Did your mom go to boarding school? And so as I'm trying to explain to people what that might look like, I share this story. Imagine that you've come to a meeting and all of you are the moms and dads, aunts and uncles and grandparents. And your children are out there and they're in the playground. They're playing. You can hear them laughing. They're with their cousins, their relatives. And a very important government person comes and steps up. And this person comes in, and you don't know why they're here. You want to be my government person? Come on, be up here. Yes. Doesn't he look like an important government person? And this government person comes to talk to your community and says, we are going to take your children away from your home, and we're going to teach them how to eat and how to learn and how to dress and how to pray and how to wear their hair. We're going to teach them how to be good, productive people in a dominant society. You're not really sure what that means because it hasn't happened before. But when you walk outside, your children are all gone. As a mother, as a father, as a big brother or sister, an auntie or uncle, how do you feel right now when you walk out and all of the children in your community that are school age are gone? How does that grandpa feel, that dad feel? They couldn't protect their children. Well, that was just kind of my story to help understand this government man here. But so I have a couple stories to tell you. I asked one of my elders, did you go to boarding school? And she said, no, I didn't go to boarding school. And she was about the same age as my mom. And she went on to tell me that she was the youngest of 14 children. And when it came time for her to go to boarding school, the government man, she said that's what we called him, the government man came to her house. Her father was a well-respected minister upriver, respected in the community, worked well with both native and non-native community. He was an honorable man, and he had had 13 children go before her. And when the government man came to take her, this honorable man was begging with the government man, negotiating, pleading, can I just raise this one child? And the thought of a father, an honorable man, having to beg to raise his child was beyond my imagination. He said, I have lost 4 children to pneumonia and disease. Can I please just raise this one child? At that point, the older children, who were adults then, stood in front of her and said, you will not take this child. This one child did not have to go. I cried for days after that at the thought of this man having to beg for his child and what those older siblings did to protect their younger sister. In my family, having 2 generations, I wondered what it was like for the children. The children went away to Tulalip or Chemawa. My mom and grandma did both. My mom went to Chemawa and wondered what it was like if we put you in a bus and sent you 600 miles away and you had a really rigid routine and schedule different than your family home. And the first thing I could tell you is you could not speak your native language. So if you're a first English speaker or you're a first Spanish speaker, whatever it is, when we take you away, you cannot speak your first language. And if you do speak your first language, you will be punished for that. And there were elders, as they were sharing their stories, that really resisted coming back and learning their language because they could feel the trauma of that teaching. So day in and day out, they got a good education, some schools better than others. Half a day, the women were taught to be domestics and the men were taught trade. Half a day, they received education. They came in, they cut off the women and the men's hair, which if you see, I have this poor, long, old woman's braid here. I quit cutting my hair when my mom passed to honor her boarding school experience, that they cut her hair when she went to school, and it was not our tradition to do that. So everything about their culture and tradition had been changed. And what they heard every day was everything about who you are isn't good. I feel really bad for the government man. I'm going to let you go. I mean, I just feel so bad to have my government man here. They just did such a hard thing. So my mom graduates from school. My grandparents graduate from school. My aunt goes on to be a nurse. My mom goes on to be a political activist. And in about her 40s, she had never really talked much about her experience in boarding school, other than the matrons were nice to her. And in her 40s, she started getting really angry about the boarding schools. And I didn't understand why, because she didn't talk much about them, but she didn't talk much bad about them either. And then after she passed, I opened up her memory box. And in her memory box was like a playbill if you go to a show. And it was about an Indian play that they got to do at the school once a year. So once a year, they got to be Indian. They got to be who they were. But who they were was not just Skagit, because these people came from Montana and Alaska and Oregon and California. So you had tribes and cultures from all different places. But to kind of say it's okay to be you for one day. Now then I realized that what they were telling her every day was that you're not good. The way you dress wasn't good, the way you eat wasn't good, the way you pray wasn't good. So that means your family's teachings aren't good. And then they sent you home to the family. And what a conflict that would be, those constant, I want you to live this way, and your family, your grandparents who are your teachers, your aunts and uncles, have taught you another way. So it set a place of confusion in the family. The grandparents have no authority or fathers to protect their children or grandchildren. They're not being able to teach them their language or their religion because our religion was outlawed. You could be arrested for practicing our native religion. So everything in a generation was completely turned upside down. And so families were turned upside down. And if you don't have those teachings of your family, things kind of fall apart. So what we're doing now, and I'm so blessed to say, like Mr. Matthias reclaiming the drum songs, my beautiful relative who will come up here and talk about saving our language, my brother Joe, who's a great historian and he loves to tell the stories too, is that the way that we're healing and honoring our ancestors that have been faced with the boarding schools is to reclaim our culture and to reclaim who we are as Skagit people, which is one of the reasons I'm talking to you here today, is that this is the land of the Skagit people. We are proud to be here. And my aunt told me, you come from Siab people, and Siab people means honorable. And honorable in our culture does not mean that you're wealthy or you're rich. It means that you carry yourself in an honorable way. You do the teachings that your family has taught you. And you follow, you respect your elders, you value your family, you help your community. And so the way that we are healing from the traumas of generations going to boarding school, I believe, is by reclaiming our culture, our language, our stories, our songs, and sharing that with other communities. I want to thank you. We have one more speaker coming up who I'm honored to invite. Her name is Laura Pennington, and she will introduce you herself in the proper way. I am so honored that she came to join us today, and she's going to share her love of her Grandma Vi and the language and stories.
Osley see my dear friends and relatives, I'm so grateful to be here today. My name is Laura Pennington in English, and my Skagit name is Sitskwalokol. It was a name carried by my great auntie, my Grandma Vi. And our names are part of our inheritance, part of how we carry ourselves well, part of how we give to society rather than take from it. What you've heard here from our history and our struggles in boarding schools, it's a really challenging existence. We survived many things, but more importantly, we thrived as tribal people. Right now, you're actually experiencing something that our ancestors experienced. What's it like to go through a pandemic? Something you guys experience every day. That's things that our ancestors, our shared ancestors, all went through. Well, for my ancestors, that pandemic not only swept through our medical lives, but it actually swept through our culture, our language, even our family structures, as you've heard. But particularly for our language, one of my great aunties, my Grandma Vi Fernando, when we were speaking the language to her, she said, "I can taste the lie in my mouth." She went to boarding school at 8 years old, and Lushootseed, our language, was all she spoke. And they would wash her mouth with lye soap if she spoke our language. And can you imagine that 60, 70 years later, they still felt the lye in their mouth? It's not like our nice soaps now. Lye soap is very harsh. And so as we progressed as tribal people through this history, what we needed to do is find the things that connect us, which is our language, our culture, our songs, our dances. Budsy, our singer today, Edmund, we all called him Budsy. As soon as he played his song, I looked over at his wife, and she and I could feel the dance that actually goes with that welcome song. Those are the things that keep you together during any sort of strife. The things that you love, the things that fill your heart. Well, for us, part of it was our language. And Grandma Vi was our language keeper. All through her life, she spoke Lushootseed, but it was only secondary. And in the 1950s, when the linguist came around and said, "We need to interview you for this," she says, "I don't know anything. I'm just a hairdresser. I'm just a hairdresser. I'm just a cook. I'm just a mom." But what she had was this wealth of knowledge in her heart and in her head. And the more she said, I'm not anybody, the more that she started anything with our language, it just opened up. I've actually seen her school papers from college as she's taking a Lushootseed course from a linguist at the University of Washington. And with him saying, well, this is the standard Lushootseed for that. And she'd say, nobody would ever say that. Because it was still outsiders trying to impose on us a language. So as you guys text each other, you guys have shortcuts and for your language that we don't know, and it's one of the great things that separates us. You guys have your own culture, and it's part of what's getting you through this huge pandemic. Imagine that being taken from you. Imagine that just being wiped out. Imagine getting soap in your mouth every time you did your shortcuts, and I can't even remember one. That's one of the things that's good about being an elder. I don't need to. I can love your guys' culture and the way you speak to each other and wonder at it. But I understand that it's one of the things that separates us, and it needs to. You guys have a mission, just like Grandma Vi had a mission. The things that you're going to do is build from your strengths, build from the things you do, build from the cultures that you've made, and you're going to take these to the next generation. As Grandma Vi was doing that for us, working with this scholar to create our written language, she was amazing. And I never knew her growing up. She was my grandmother's cousin. They were raised as sisters. And they went through boarding school together. And my grandma would teach Grandma Vi how to fight. She'd say, put your fist in the air, Ginny. Don't let them bully you. And Grandma Vi would just say, I can't. I'm not a fighter. Well, for our language, she became one. She fought for it. I was a student at the University of Washington. My first day of college, I was in her class. I didn't know we were related. My Indian club advisor had put me in this class. And I said, no, I have all my humanities. I don't need another language class. And she said, you'll take this. And as a first year of college student, I just found myself walking into this class saying, why am I taking this class? And I came in, and that college class was as big as you guys here in this cafeteria. And imagine coming from a small high school to a class with hundreds of students. I was beyond blown away. And down at the front of this class was this itty-bitty tribal woman, and she could talk, and she would tell stories, and she could just hold this entire class of 100 people just with her presence. But before she started telling stories, she said, all right, what tribe are you from? And I said, Skagit. And she said, I want to see you after class. My first day of college, I was in trouble. From then on out, she was my world. And this is the story that she told as she went across the world. Aslachli el kusid bis chad al dehi kwa al dayai hui gwisyayas hoi kodada gwel u e kweda tiahi kwa al khas tail gwel udagwijalo al ta al hoi huilauf shubshad. Lady Louse had this great, huge house, but she had no friends, she had no relatives. She was all alone in that great, huge house. One day she took it and she swept it. This great big house, it was so filthy. She cleaned and she cleaned. And when she got to the middle, she got lost. And that was the end of Lady Louse. Our stories are important teachings. As you think on this story, each one of us was challenged to discover the meaning of the story ourselves, but then write our own Lady Louse stories. My favorite Lady Louse story that somebody ever wrote is Lady Louse was a sponge. One day she got self-absorbed. And that was the end of Lady Louse the sponge. As you go forward, you're going to be creating your own stories. I hope it's a Lady Louse story. I hope it's the Earth as a First Teacher story. But as you do that, take with it the knowledge that you are surviving something incredible, and you're doing it in your own way, and you have that power and strength within you. So I want to thank you for letting us come today, and I appreciate all of your time. Dahadupsh.
If you can imagine having one of your grandmothers or favorite uncle, the most difficult person in your family, and they're your teacher, and they expect the very best and most from you, that's what Laura got to experience. We just have a couple minutes for thank yous.
So first of all, we just want to acknowledge our witnesses one last time. Adam Wagenbach, Delaney Allen, Nina Horan, and Aaron Wagner. And then if Dr. Babanko could come join us on the stage real quick.
I have a thank you gift for Dr. Wadawa for inviting us. It was made by a friend of mine who does cedar weaving, and it has Coast Salish canoes on there. And I want to gift this from our family to her to thank you for inviting us. I especially want to thank the students of Mount Vernon High School for being so gracious in having us here. I would like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and coming to listen to us today. We are honored as Skagit people to speak to you. And my last thank you is to this guy here who sent me a message one day and said, it's almost Native American Heritage Month, would you like to speak? And he's been being communicated with me in kindness and not so much for weeks. He's been so gracious and really enjoys and wants you to know and wants the people around here to know about the Skagit people, the land that the high school's on, probably your homes are on. But I would like you to give yourself a big hand. I thank you so much. You Bulldogs are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, once again, Kate.